actively listen, validate, and empathize. So this is something that actually, it seems like it would be common sense, right? But it's not really. We don't really have conversations this way. Often when someone's talking to us, we're kind of thinking about what we're going to say next a lot of the time, right? We're not so much engrossed and focused on what they're sharing with us a lot of the times. Mm-hmm. And the same thing then happens when we're into some sort of conflict or conversation with our partner. We're kind of like stuck in our own stuff. And a lot of times we're not really listening, not totally. We're not really picking up what they're putting down. And we want to try to do our best to just take ourselves and how we're feeling and stuff, just put that aside when the person's expressing, and we'll go through this more when we get to the process, the method itself, but we want to step aside and let them express how they're feeling and do our best to relate to it, validate it, and understand, oh, if I was experiencing that, I can understand and empathize with this. Now, sometimes expressions of your partner, you don't know how to relate. Like it's not something that you understand really. Like you just don't have that experience. Maybe maybe they're talking about something that just doesn't bother you at all. So you may not be able to empathize directly because you tend to only really be able to truly empathize when you have been in a similar position, or you can form it and grasp it. But if you can't empathize, then our recommendation is to use sympathy, right? Basically to say, it sounds like it was really hard for you. You could say something like, I can feel how difficult this was for you. Even just something like that, you're recognizing that they're in pain and you're noticing it. You may not understand it directly, but you can sympathize with it and know that they're not just making stuff up. They're not like, it's not like they're upset over nothing at all. They're upset because they've had a feeling come up. It's not like they picked it out and chose it to happen that way. Right. So, you want to offer your empathy or sympathy, and best you can, and help them feel a little bit safe with what they've shared, feel heard, and feel like they're not crazy for feeling this way. Help them feel like you're with them on it.
Yes. I think this ties in to point 5 about assuming the best. So I was thinking of assuming the best a lot about, oh, my partner did something that was upsetting to me, but I want to assume the best about him or her. But also the reverse, if your partner comes to you and is just upset and in pain, assume the best of their experience. That, as you just said, they're not just creating a drama out of the air. They are in pain. So just assume that respect towards each other.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. They're gonna have their own experience of it. Yeah. And their experience is just as valid as your experience. And you may not fully understand or relate. But you just do your best to. And I think as long as you're really trying to do that, that's going to come across. So I think that's really the main thing.
Yes.
This also helps you to grasp some of the things that they're sensitive around too, right? Like if you're not listening to what their pains are, or their experience, then you're not grasping why it was hard for them, or what the struggle was, where the conflict was within them. Like you're not really a participant with them. You're just kind of letting them go. Right. And you want to actively be a participant.
Yeah. And actively listening, just to make sure we're all clear, means when you listen and then you basically summarize what the person has said.
Yeah. What I heard you say was this. Yes. Did I get that right? Have I understood you?
That phrase is like just nirvana to me when you say that. What I heard you say, I just love it so much.
What I heard you say is that phrase is nirvana to me, to you when I say that.
It is. I love it so much. I just got tinglies. Okay, beautiful. The next point is holding space. So I think in a way, this listening, validating, empathizing, the umbrella term for it, we could just call holding space. And it's really just, it's what I do as a therapist. It's the main thing I do as a therapist is just to hold space, is just to be a presence, a human presence for your fellow human being who is suffering right now. It's so interesting how we're wired that just someone being with us when we are in pain can just feel so comforting and can really just provide so much to us in those moments. So even if you're triggered yourself by what's going on and your own stuff is coming up, can you hold space for your partner? And what I like to think of it, even if you're just having the hardest time doing this, because maybe they've said things that are just very hurtful, your precious heart is wide open and you're feeling really hurt. Can you go down to the most basic level of, this is a fellow human being who is in pain, and can I just be there for them because they are in pain?
Yeah. And I'd like to just add to this a little bit, because this is a challenging one for me due to my own experience with people. I had several experiences earlier on in my life with dual diagnosis, borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder individuals that they would get emotional and then crazy stuff would go on. Like, I'm not saying they were crazy. I don't think of things like that, but crazy events would happen. And I've talked to Tassel about some of these. I don't want to go into them, but a lot of really ridiculous stuff would happen. Stuff that you couldn't predict. There was no way to understand where things were going. And so it was very, very, very unsafe feeling for me when these people would get upset. Right. So what this ended up doing for me was informing a challenge when my partner gets upset. Right. When Tassel's upset, I have trouble sitting in it because I'm kind of like, ooh, I don't know what's going to happen next. Yeah. And not that Tassel's ever done any of that stuff. Right. And so this can be actually a pretty challenging orientation for some people, depending on their experiences.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty simple because we're just kind of letting them express themselves and trying to accept what they're saying and hold space for them. But when we're like afraid, that's not very easy to do. Right. And so part of this process that I've had to expand in is to constantly remind myself, it's okay, it's fine, it's all okay. Just constantly reminding myself that when people are upset and like very emotional, crying, whatever it is, it's okay. It's not going to go to where it went before. And if it does, then I'm also going to be able to experience that and be okay with that as well. I got through it last time. I can get through it this time too. And just also like with Tassel, I can remind myself that she doesn't do these things, like she's not going to do that stuff. At least for me, that's sort of my process to help me just remember who I'm dealing with instead of recalling my past experiences and trauma.
Yes. Beautiful. I'm really glad you brought that up, that for some of us, this is challenging because of basically traumatic experiences in the past.
Sometimes emotions from other people can be very unsettling to us, right?
Yes. And this is something just so great to share with your partner if this is your experience. So it's really helpful for me to know, to just be aware that is challenging for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I do my best and I'm continually trying to expand in this. But it's these types of discussions that allow Tassel to just be aware that sometimes if she's upset, like I'm feeling probably pretty freaked out. And I'm trying not to be, but so it's important. And if we have those traumas, then we do need to go in and heal those and look at why we feel so upset about it. A lot of the time it's coming from a place of like us taking responsibility for it. and stuff like that too. Like us feeling like it's our job to fix them and things like that. There's it's usually a lot of empathy happening, a lot of like sympathetic resonance to their suffering that's causing this type of cycling. So it's just important to look at that, I think.
And this whole conversation right here makes me want to add yet another point to the overall method. And that is, maybe we would title it "Where I'm At Right Now." So like with you, letting me know where you're at right now with this particular point of holding space, that is something I hope to expand in. And at the same time, it can be very challenging for me because of previous experiences. So that sharing with each other, where I'm at right now, and some of these things.
The most important thing is that for me, that I'm aware that I'm working on expanding this. I'm aware of the issue. I'm aware of my history. I'm aware of my trauma. And so when these things come up, I know what's going on. I'm aware of this traumatic narrative that's coming up to play. And I'm aware that my goal is to not get sucked into that so much. And once we have awareness of our triggers and stuff in that way, we know they're going to start dissolving. So we can, we can have these types of conversations and let our partner know this is where I'm at right now. And once we have that conversation, the partner can be reasonably sure that that they are going to expand out of that. Otherwise, if they weren't, they wouldn't be aware of it.
Yep. Totally. Beautiful. Okay. The next point.
Share conversation intentions. Good intentions. So I think of this in two different ways. So it goes back to remembering that everyone's doing their best, I think. So when you're starting the conversation, the intentions, you want to set that intention of like, we're coming together and we're going to move through this together. We can do it. It's not like we're not going to be able to traverse this issue. It's not a scary talk that's about to happen. It's something that we're coming together with as partners. And we both have the intention of getting as close to resolution as we can, finding harmony with each other. And then also noticing our own intentions in what we're saying, I think is really important. Like a lot of times we can phrase things in peaceful ways, but our intention is a little bit misaligned. It's to highlight a behavior that we don't like. So we're not saying, like we're sometimes saying, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but sometimes we're saying something that appears to be a positive thing or appears to be neutral. But our energy and what our intention is bringing is basically change, right? Like we're sending some judgment. So we want to notice our own intentions of like what we're bringing to the conversation. And we want to try to presume that our partner is bringing their good intentions to each part of the conversation, and also to the, whatever happened earlier on in the that caused sort of the conflict to begin.
Yes. And I think this is so helpful to do before every conversation. And I think one of the conversations we recently had, and I was kind of emotional, I might have been crying. I said at the outset, I think I said things I was grateful about in regards to you. And then I said, I'm sure we can work through this.
Yeah.
Because I think especially if you are emotional, the other person might think, oh my gosh, this is such a big deal. They're crying. Could this be the end? Or just the thinking mind's off and running with worst case scenarios. So starting off with, no, like, I think we can move through this. I love you. I'm grateful for you. And then, I would say this is a soft beginning. Maybe it could be termed, and rather than a hard beginning, a soft entry into this type of conversation.